Welcome back, friends. I am Dr. Mnelo, and in today's session we are going to continue with the topic of ATP summation. So today's session we will discuss about the ATP summation and the oxygen depth together with its mechanism and its advantage in the human body. So the number of ATP molecules produced during respiration of one molecule of glucose depends on the nature of glucose metabolism. It's either aerobic respiration or anaerobic respiration. So we will discuss the number of ATP produced and the mechanism on how we count the number of ATP, total number of ATP in aerobic or in anaerobic respiration, because the two types of respiration, they define the number of ATP produced during the process of respiration. Now let's see the table here. Let's see this table here, and by discussion of this table we can understand it clearly. So we are saying that total yield of ATP when glucose is respired aerobically, total yield of ATP, maximum ATP yield per glucose molecule in anaerobic respiration. Here we have phase or stage ATP produced directly, ATP produced indirectly. Then we have ATP from oxidative phosphorylation. That means the ATP which are produced indirectly, it is because of the hydrogen carriers such as NAD and FAD. These hydrogen carriers, when they reach in the oxidative phosphorylation, they release ATP. And here is the total number of ATP. We are starting with the glycolysis. ATP produced directly, they are 2 ATP produced directly. Net gain is 2 ATP, because the ATP produced there are 4, but the 2 ATPs, they were used in the activation of glucose to make it more reactive and provide the activation energy for the reaction. That's why the net gain is 2 ATP. And then we have 2 NADH2. But for every NADH2 molecule, which is present, we are producing, for every NADH2 molecule which is present, we are producing 3 ATP. So for this NADH2, one NADH2 is equivalent to 3 ATP. So you see, 2 NADH2 will be equivalent to 6 ATP. So 62 plus 6 we get 8 ATP, total ATP in glycolysis. That means these 2 they are directly, these 6 they are produced in oxidative phosphorylation. We are getting total ATP. How many? They are 80 in number. Those are the total ATP in the glycolysis process. From there we have the transition stage in which direct number of ATP they are empty, but indirect we have one NADH2 which is equivalent to 3 ATP. So we'll have 3 ATP. From there, this is the transition stage. Again, this transition stage, it is written second time. So this you can just delete this from your head. It is not present here. There is no need for this. There is no need for this column to appear here. There is no need for this. All of this law, there is no need for it to appear in the table, because it is the repetition of what we have already written. It is the repetition of what we have already written. Okay, anyway, what we mean here is that we have two. Anyway, I have already remembered something. We have 2 pyruvate molecules which are formed. So for every pyruvate molecule which is formed, we have 1 NAD. So that's why tumeandika transition stage zikiwa 2 na Krebs cycle tumeandika zikiwa 2. Why? It is because we have 2 pyruvate molecule from glycolysis. Tunapoingia transition stage, we are entering with 2 pyruvate. So for every pyruvate inakuwa produce 1 NAD. Then 1 NAD enda kulise 3 ATP. 3 ATP utapata 3 na hapo 3. From there tukienda kwenye Krebs cycle, 1 ATP direct, then tuna 3 NAD and 1 FAD. 3 NAD is equivalent to how many ATP? 9 ATPs. 3 NAD equivalent to 9 ATP, but 1 FAD is equivalent to 2 ATP, not 3 ATP as NAD. Hiyo tulishaeleza kule kwenye electron transport chain kwa nini inatokea hivyo. So Krebs cycle as total hapa inatengeneza how many? 12. 9 plus 2 it is 11 plus 1 ni 12. But we have 2 Krebs cycles because of the 2 pyruvate molecule and 2 molecules of acetyl coenzyme A which enter the Krebs cycle. So at the end of the day we are ending up with 12 and 12 ATP, then 3 with 3 we are getting 6. If we add up 12 and 12 it is 24 plus 6 it is 30 plus 8 it is 38 ATP. So this is how we are counting the total yield of ATP. We are counting the total yield of ATP, and this is how the total ATP they are produced in the process for complete respiration of glucose, complete respiration of glucose. So what we are saying ni kwamba total yield of ATP when glucose is respired anaerobically. Kwa kama ikiwa respired anaerobically, yield of ATP inapungua. In this case, only the 2 ATP obtained direct during glycolysis will be available. Total ATP liberated is 2 ATP. Conclusion from the computation above, it is observed that aerobic respiration gives a great amount of energy as compared to anaerobic respiration. Now let's move to another part, which is calculation of the efficiency of aerobic and anaerobic respiration. How do we calculate the process of efficiency of respiration? Efficiency of respiration. Kama unavyojua efficiency ni kama uwezo wa kitu kufanya kazi kilivyotakiwa kifanya. Now in terms of an aerobic respiration, during aerobic respiration 38 molecules of ATP are produced for every glucose molecule which is oxidized. Sasa tuna calculate 38 molecules of ATP ni sawasawa na kilojoule per mole ngapi. Halafu tunaangalia kwamba katika energy yote ilikuwa produced, how much of the energy imekuwa converted into ATP and how much of the energy imekuwa lost as heat energy. Kwa energy iliyokuwa converted into ATP ndio ile tunayohesabu kwamba it is efficiency of respiration, but energy which is lost as heat energy hatuihesabii kwenye efficiency of respiration. So tuna calculate vipi? The energy released by the complete oxidation of glucose molecule ni ngapi? Energy released by the complete oxidation of glucose molecule ni ngapi? Ni 2880 kilojoule per mole of glucose. Lakini the energy contained in one ATP ni ngapi? Ni 30.6 kilojoule per mole of ATP. Kwa tunachokifanya tunazidisha 36.6 kilojoule kwa 38, tunapata 1162.8 kilojoule. Unaona 38 maana yake number of ATP hizo 1162.8 kilojoule. From there tunaangalia the efficiency of transfer of energy in aerobic respiration. Tunaposema hivyo tunamaanisha tunaangalia efficiency ya energy kutoka kwenye glucose bond kwenda kwenye ATP. How much of the energy imekuwa stored as ATP. So efficiency is equal to energy stored in ATP divided by total energy released times 100. Efficiency will be equal to 1162.8 kilojoule divided by 2880 kilojoule times 100. So we'll get efficiency of aerobic respiration is 40.4%. 40.4%. Hiyo ni efficiency of aerobic respiration, efficiency of aerobic respiration. Lakini kwenye anaerobic respiration efficiency is different. Kwa sababu gani? Only 2 ATP are produced, so that means we are predicting that the efficiency of a process of respiration will decrease because of the decrease in the number of ATP which are produced. So during alcoholic, in anaerobic respiration, as we have discussed, we have two types, alcoholic and lactic acid. During alcoholic fermentation, 2 molecules of ATP are produced for every molecule of glucose used. So utapata glucose 2 ethanol plus 2 carbon dioxide plus 2 ATP. Total energy released by conversion of glucose to ethanol is 210 kilojoule. 210 kilojoule per mole. Hiyo ni total energy ambayo inakuwa released hapo. But the energy which is contained in 2 ATP itakuwa ni 2 mara 30.6 kilojoule. Energy which is contained in 2 ATP. So energy inayokuwa released kwenye reaction ni hapa. Unapewa kabisa hii kwenye swali. Lakini energy released by 2 ATP una calculate 2 times ile pale. Efficiency of transfer of energy during alcoholic fermentation itakuwa 61.2 kilojoule per mole divided by 210 kilojoule per mole times 100. So to get 29.1%. 21.9%. Hiyo itakuwa ni efficiency ya nani? Ya alcoholic fermentation. Let's see about the efficiency of lactic acid fermentation. Efficiency of lactic acid fermentation. And sometimes these questions they appear in the exams to calculate the efficiency of the process of respiration. Now kwenye lactic acid fermentation, during lactate or lactic acid fermentation, 2 molecules of ATP are produced for every molecule of glucose. 2 molecules of ATP are produced for every molecule of glucose used. So glucose will release 2 lactate plus 2 ATP. 2 lactate plus 2 ATP. The total energy released by conversion of glucose to lactate is 150 kilojoule per mole. 150 kilojoule per mole. The energy contained in 2 molecules of ATP inakuwa ngapi? 61.2 kwa sababu ni 30.6 times 2. So ukichukua hiyo 61 gawanya kwa hiyo hapo, ndio maana unaona hii energy released conversion from hiyo hapo, energy released imetofautiana kwenye alcoholic. So tutapata 40.8%, that is efficiency. So study of the above figures indicates that efficiency of each system is relatively high when compared with the petrol engines. Ukiangalia petrol engines ina efficiency ya 25 hadi 30. 25 hadi 30. And the steam engine ambayo ni 8 hadi 12. So the amount of energy captured as ATP during aerobic respiration is 19 times as much as for anaerobic respiration. That is 38 ATP compared with the 2 ATP unapata ni 19 times. Marake ni 2 mara 19 ndio utapata 38. From this point of view, aerobic respiration is much more efficient than anaerobic respiration. This is because a great deal of energy remains locked within lactate or ethanol. The energy in ethanol is permanently unavailable to yeast, which clear inefficient energy producing process. Which clear indicates that alcoholic fermentation is an inefficient. Kwa hiyo kwa sababu energy kutoka kwenye alcoholic fermentation ile energy ni ethanol haiwezi kutumika tena, that means alcoholic fermentation is not a good process for production of energy as compared with the lactic acid fermentation. However, the energy in lactate inaweza kutumika tena. So we are saying however, much of the energy locked in lactate may be liberated at later stages in oxygen is made available. In the presence of oxygen, lactate is converted to pyruvate in liver. Pyruvate then enters the Krebs cycle and is fully oxidized to carbon dioxide and water, releasing many more ATP molecules in the process. Alternatively, the pyruvate can be converted back to glucose by the reverse of glycolysis using energy from ATP. Now, we have already discussed about the concept of efficiency of ATP, efficiency of aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Let's move to the concept of oxygen depth, its mechanism and its uses in the body. So, oxygen depth and the intermediate effect of exercise. Oxygen depth and the intermediate effect of exercise. There is only a small store of ATP in the cells. Kama tulivyosema kwamba cells ina uwezo kusense ATP. So kama cells zikiwa deprived for ATP zina sense, then ATP inakuwa produced. So the body has involved a mechanism by which it can supply energy to the muscle. There is only a small store of ATP in the cells. Normally the body can replace the ATP as fast as it is used. But if a sudden change is made from rest to exercise, it takes a little while to adjust. Kwa kama mtu ameanza exercise suddenly, inachukua muda kidogo yeye kuweza kuanza produce ATP ambazo zitatosha mwili. So the body has evolved a mechanism by which it can supply energy to the muscles at the required rate until the rate of aerobic respiration has increased sufficiently. One of these mechanisms is anaerobic respiration. Ni kwa kupitia anaerobic respiration. It is important to realize that it is a supplement to aerobic respiration, an extra rather than an alternative. So anaerobic respiration is an extra of aerobic respiration, not an alternative. It is an extra because when anaerobic respiration continues, aerobic respiration also continues. So that's why we are saying it is not an alternative, but it is an extra. In the presence of anaerobic only, an organism cannot survive. So figures below show a graph of oxygen uptake during and immediately after a period of exercise. To satisfy the energy demand of the exercise aerobically, 3 dm cube of oxygen per minute must be supplied. In the graph now, in the example shown, is not achieved until here. There are some of the writings they have marked by this one, so let I read in the book. So in this example they are not shown until 6 minutes. Here we have 6. In this part we have let I just magnify this first. So until here we have 60 minutes after exercise began. So hiyo diagram iko hapo sasa. Wewe tuone hiyo diagram. Alafu tuone anazungumza kitu gani hapa. Kwamba tunahitaji 3 dm cube per minute of oxygen. Lakini hizo 3 dm cube per minute hazijafikiwa. Now how the body will react. Now here is our graph. Graph iko kwenye BSc. Here is our graph. Unaweza kuona kwamba from our graph you can observe something. Kwamba tukianzia, let's say tukianzia hapa kuelezea graph. So hapa kuna 0. Tumeanzia tu hapa kuna 0. Hapa tumpata 6. Hapa ngapi? 12. This is time in minutes. Sasa kama mtu ameanza hapa exercise, kumbuka huyu mtu anahitaji umene 3 dm cube of oxygen per minute. So kama hapa ni 6, maana yake ni 1 2 3 4 5, then this one is 6. Kwa hiyo in this 1 minute tuitegemea huyu mtu awe ameshapata kiasi gani cha oxygen? Awe ameshapata 3 liters. Lakini hicho kitu hakiwezekani. Kwa unakuja kuona hii tunasema ni oxygen consumed during exercise. Oxygen consumed. Unakuja kuona oxygen consumed hapa mwanzoni haikuanga 6 liter. Until alipofika kwenye umene kwenye 6 minutes ndio consumption ya oxygen ikaanga 3 dm cube. 3 dm cube. Tuwefika kwenye 6 minutes. So the process from here to 6 minutes, consumption of oxygen was not 6 liter. Ilikuwa inaongezeka with time. You see, this is during exercise. But during recovery now, during recovery, manake mtu ameenda sehemu ameresti. Huyu mtu atakuwa anavuta oxygen, lakini ile oxygen itakuwa inaenda kulipa. Manake kulikuwa kuna depth imetengenezwa, kulikuwa kuna in this region kulikuwa kuna oxygen ambayo itakiwa iwepo. Kwa sababu manake hii graph yote itakiwa ianzie hapa, iende flat. Lakini imeenda hivi, that means ili hapa ni deni. Afu hapa B huyu mtu ana consume oxygen. Anapo consume anaenda kuilipa. Anaenda kuilipa kwenye body kurudisha ile oxygen. This is what we call the oxygen depth. The amount of oxygen required to metabolize lactic acid produced during reaction. So oxygen consumed at rest inakuwa iko pale. Oxygen consumed at rest. So after exercise Ukishalipa hiyo oxygen debt, unarudi tena pale kwenye rest, unaendelea na consume oxygen as usual, unaendelea na consume oxygen as usual. Maisha yanakuwa yanaendelea. Now let's go to the explanation of this graph and let's see how we are explaining this this phenomena in the body. So tunachokisema ni kwamba the oxygen deficit is the amount of oxygen that was needed but not supplied from outside of the body by breathing. Kwenye graph yetu imekuwa noted by region A. Oxygen deficit, this one, amount of oxygen which were required by the body but is not supplied by the gaseous exchange. So oxygen deficit itapelekea nini? Oxygen debt at rest. So oxygen deficit is shown in region A in the graph. During that first 60 minutes, various mechanisms would be used to maintain the supply of energy as described below. Now question, for example, the rate of uptake of oxygen increases immediately exercise starts. How will the supply of oxygen from outside the body to the cell increase during exercise? So kinachoulizwa hapo ni kwamba supply of oxygen from outside of the body to the cell inaongezekaje? We have mechanisms such as increasing the rate of ventilation and heart rate. So oxygen supply is increased by increasing rate and the depth of breathing and increasing the power and the rate of heartbeat. So rate of breathing allow the air to enter the blood, but rate of heartbeat increases the pumping of air to the periphery of the body where oxygen it is used in different processes. Now let's see the mechanism which are used to maintain the oxygen or which are used to maintain the supply of energy during exercises, ambayo tumesema kwenye zile first 6 minutes kuna different mechanism. So mechanisms used to maintain supply of energy during exercise. Ya kwanza ni oxygen reserve. Oxygen reserve. The body has reserve oxygen capacity. This includes the extra more oxygen than usual from lungs, the body fluid and hemoglobin. So kuna oxygen reserve kwenye lungs, then body fluid pamoja na hemoglobin. Also in muscles, oxygen is stored in a molecule known as myoglobin. This is very similar to hemoglobin, and like hemoglobin can combine reversibly with oxygen. So myoglobin can combine reversibly with oxygen, and it is used only when the body is depleted with the oxygen. Kwa mazingira ambayo body haina oxygen inafanya nini? Inafanya respiration kutumia oxygen iliyokuwa stored kwenye myoglobin. However, it does not release its oxygen until the oxygen level become very low. It does not release its oxygen until the oxygen level become very low, and hemoglobin has already released most of its oxygen. So it therefore only used at times of high demands. That is the first mechanism by which body maintain the energy supply. But the second mechanism is creatine phosphate. Creatine phosphate. Now the amount of ATP in muscles is sufficiently only for about 3 seconds of maximum muscle contraction. Maximum muscle contraction amount of ATP which is present in the muscle is efficient for about only 3 seconds of maximum muscle contraction. Now creatine phosphate is another chemical like ATP which contain phosphate group that can be removed to release energy. So creatine phosphate it is the combination of creatine and phosphate. So it contains phosphate group which can be broken down to release energy. As we know, the breakdown of bonds releases energy. So it releases enough energy to make ATP from ADP and phosphate. Muscle cell has 2 to 4 times as much creatine phosphate as ATP. So the number of our creatine phosphate molecules, they are 2 to 4 times as compared with the number of ATP in the muscle cell. So energy can very rapidly be switched to ATP from creatine phosphate when needed. ATP and creatine phosphate together can provide maximum muscle power for about 8 to 10 seconds. About 8 to 10 seconds. That means if the body will go to rest, then the creatine phosphate will be formed again. Creatine phosphate will be formed again when body goes to rest, or when body reaches condition which the needs of energy, they have been decreased as compared with the normal. Then we have the third mechanism, which is anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration, or the glycogen lactic acid system. Glycogen lactic acid system. Although anaerobic respiration only provides 2 molecules of ATP per glucose molecule, compared with 38 ATP for aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration can operate much faster than aerobic respiration. So anaerobic respiration, because it contains it has only single step, which is glycolysis, its operation is faster as compared with aerobic respiration. So in aerobic respiration, even if the 38 ATPs they are formed, but the formation of 38 ATPs, it is the long process. Now in fact, it is the rate of ATP production. We are saying that in fact, it is the rate of ATP production is about 2.5 times faster than that of aerobic respiration. 5 molecules of ATP produced for every 2 produced by aerobic respiration in a given time period. So tungetegemea kama inayotokea glycolysis ya kawaida zingekuwa produced 2 ATPs, lakini because the rate is 2.5 times faster, baada ya kutengeneza 2 tutatengeneza 5 molecules of ATP in the same time ambayo aerobic glycolysis ingetengeneza 5 molecules of ATP. Now anaerobic respiration can therefore supply energy rapidly. It uses glycogen stored in the muscle as the source of glucose. So inatumia glycogen inayoconvert kwenda lactic acid. It can provide enough energy for about 90 seconds of maximum muscle activity. 90 seconds of maximum muscle activity. All these systems are improved by regular exercises. Mtu anapokuwa anafanya exercise mara nyingi ndivyo ambavyo hizi systems zake zinakuwa zinafanya kazi vizuri. So overall, we can see that creatine phosphate and the anaerobic system supply energy rapidly, but only for short periods of time. Only for short periods of time. However, the rate of supply of energy is rapidly. Unakuta 90 seconds. 90 seconds is about 1.5 minutes. Now, the aerobic system supplies energy for unlimited time, so for longer time, providing the supply of raw material is adequate. Kwa kama tu kuna raw materials za kutosha, we have glucose, we have starch and things like that. The starch can be digested and then will lead to production of final product, which is glucose. So provided that the condition is suitable, then we are saying that aerobic respiration continues unlimited. So sports or activities which rely on short explosive bursts of activity, such as a 100-meter race or weightlifting, use mainly the creatine phosphate system. Additional energy from anaerobic respiration could be used in 200-meter race. So different kinds of activities, they can have different amount of energy which is consumed in those activities. So that's why we've said kwa mfano mbio za mita 100 zinatumia creatine phosphate system, lakini anaerobic respiration inaweza kutumika kwenye mbio kama za mita 200, mbio za mita 200. So most of the energy in 400-meter race would come from anaerobic respiration. And sports like tennis, squash and soccer would rely almost entirely on anaerobic respiration. Kwa unaona vitu vya muda mrefu vinatumia anaerobic respiration. So yeah, rely mostly on anaerobic respiration during active phase of the game. So endurance sports such as marathon, running, jogging and cross country skiing are almost entirely aerobic. almost entirely aerobic. Mbio ndefu kama marathon ni pole pole, unakwenda tu pole pole, energy nyingi inatoka kwenye aerobic. After exercise, the graph above does not return immediately to the resting requirement of 0.25 dm³ of oxygen per minute. Instead, the body continues to breathe in and use extra oxygen. The amount of this oxygen is shown in the region B of the graph and is known as the oxygen depth. So unakuta mtu ume stop exercise lakini bado unaendelea so unafanya hivyo kwa sababu gani? Kwa sababu rate ya kupumua haiwezi kupungua pale pale, kwa sababu body inakuwa inahitaji more oxygen ili iweze kulipa the oxygen depth. So we are saying that oxygen depth is the extra amount of oxygen required by body after exercise to metabolize lactic acid. In terms of uses of oxygen depth, first, it replaces the oxygen reserved in the body, including restoring normal levels of oxygen in the lungs, tissue fluid, hemoglobin, and myoglobin. Second, it restores creatine phosphate after exercise. The creatine combined with the phosphate again using energy from aerobic respiration. Replacement of oxygen reserves and creatine phosphate takes place rapidly, which explains the steep downward part of the curve in the first few minutes of the recovery. The slow part of the recovery is the removal of lactic acid resulting from anaerobic respiration. Kwa tunaanza kureplace creatine phosphate pamoja na oxygen reserve, then baadaye na remove lactic acid ambayo ilikuwa formed. Later we are removing lactic acid ambayo ilikuwa formed during the process of anaerobic respiration to remove lactic acid ambayo ilikuwa formed during the process of anaerobic respiration. So this first diffuses into the blood when it is carried away from the muscles, mainly to the liver. So lactic acid ina diffuse into the blood, na kidifuse kwenye blood most often huwa inaenda kwenye liver. Kwa hiyo ina diffuse kwenye blood then inakuwa carried to the liver. Here it is reconverted mainly here it is reconverted to pyruvate and reduced in NAD. So some of the pyruvate enter the normal aerobic pathway through the Krebs cycle to be oxidized, yielding ATP. This ATP can be used to convert the rest of pyruvate back to glucose by the reverse glycolysis up to 75% of pyruvate. The heart can also convert lactic acid back to pyruvate and reduce the NAD as an extra energy store during heavy exercise. Hiyo ni heart only, but other muscles they just accumulate the lactic acid and they transport it to the liver. Now there is this question which is normally appears in the exam, kwamba why does the lactic acid level in the blood continue to rise after exercise when anaerobic respiration has ceased? Kwamba anaerobic respiration imeisha, lakini kwa nini lactic acid inakuwa inaongezeka kwenye blood? That is because lactic acid inatoka kwenye muscles inaingia kwenye portal vein, na kwenye inaingia kwenye vein ambayo inapeleka blood kwenye liver, so inaingia kwenye circulation. We are saying that lactic acid is being removed from the muscle by the blood to be taken to the liver kwa ajili ya metabolism. Lakini pia unaambiwa name 4 chemical substances which are involved in respiration which would enter the mitochondria from cytoplasm and for which would live. Kwa hiyo swali pia liko kwenye BS, unaona those which can enter, unakuta kuna pyruvate, kuna oxygen, reduced hydrogen carrier and ADP. Lakini zile ambazo zina live kuna carbon dioxide, oxidized hydrogen carrier, ATP and water. So this marks the end of our discussion of today's session. In the next session we are going to discuss about the alternative respiratory substrate when we'll be discussing about the respiration of fat and the respiration or for proteins, respiration of fat and respiration of proteins. So thank you everybody, and later I wish you nice studies. Thank you.